Hey, for not giving my house to my sister who's expecting my husband's baby? My name is Rachel Morgan and I am 30 years old. In my family, I was always the responsible one. While others dreamed of huge, distant things, my head was focused on something much more concrete. I wanted stability. I wanted my own house. I wanted a life that did not depend on anyone's mood swings. I worked incredibly hard in college, studied systems engineering, and right after graduating, I started working at a software company that was growing very fast in the North Dallas area. I was doing well. I did not get rich overnight, but I earned enough to save seriously and live peacefully. At 26, I was able to save up a very good down payment and get a mortgage that I could actually pay without drowning in debt. That is how I bought my house, a 2-story home in a quiet gated community in Plano, Texas, with a small backyard patio where I like to drink coffee in the mornings before going to work. 3 years ago, I married Marcus. I met him at a technology convention where he worked as a digital marketing consultant. When we got married, he moved into my house. Before the wedding, my parents insisted heavily that everything be done under a prenuptial agreement properly signed and with clear separation of assets. I accepted without any problem. Marcus initially felt uncomfortable, as if it were a lack of trust, but in the end he signed. At that moment, I thought it was just an awkward formality, and never imagined how important it would be later. My family situation was always complicated. I helped my parents out with money more often than I like to admit. If they fell behind on electricity, utilities, or any monthly bill, I was there. If their money was not enough, I made a transfer. I never completely refused because I kept telling myself they were my parents and that family supports each other. But sometimes I wondered if they truly saw me as a daughter or just as the one who fixes things. And then there was my younger sister, Lindsay. Lindsay was 27, 3 years younger than me, and she was my absolute opposite in almost everything. Impulsive, unpredictable, and inconsistent. She lived in a rented apartment with her boyfriend, Brandon, in Garland, and I almost never saw him because their relationship was a continuous disaster. They fought constantly. She would go to my parents' place for a few days, then return, they would make up, and shortly after, they would break up again. It was like watching the same fire over and over. Marcus and I had a habit of having dinner with my parents twice a month. The Sunday everything really started, we arrived at their apartment in East Dallas and found Lindsay there alone, with swollen eyes and running makeup. "And Brandon?" I asked while taking off my jacket. Lindsay burst into tears instantly. "We broke up. He kicked me out." Between sobs, she told us she had also lost her job at a clothing store where she worked. Brandon, according to her, said he was not going to support her with his money and gave her 2 days to get her things out. My dad cleared his throat in that way I already knew too well. "Rachel, we need to talk to you." I knew what was coming. It was the tone of, "We need to ask you a favor." "Lindsay is going through a very difficult time," my mom said, squeezing her hand. "She needs help finding a job and a place to stay. She has been sleeping on our couch," my dad added. "But you see how small this apartment is." I looked at Lindsay. She looked defeated. I felt sorry for her. I also felt a pang of anxiety. I loved my house precisely because it was my space, my place, the spot where no one demanded anything from me. "We were thinking," my mom continued with that soft tone she used when she wanted to get her way, "that you could let her stay with you for a while just until she gets settled." I turned to look at Marcus. He just barely shrugged as if saying the decision was mine. "And maybe you could also help her find a job," my dad added. "You know people at your company, right?" I took a deep breath. I did not want to say yes, I really did not want to, but I looked at my shattered sister and thought about what I would want them to do for me if I were in her shoes. "All right," I finally said with a long sigh. "You can stay with us for a while, Lindsay, and I will ask around the office to see if anything comes up." Lindsay jumped up and hugged me. "Thank you. I swear I will not cause you any problems." Marcus squeezed my hand under the table. "Everything is going to be fine," he said. I was not so sure, but I smiled anyway. What else was I going to do? Family supports each other. Lindsay moved in with us a few days later. I prepared the guest room for her and made some rules clear. Help around the house, look for a job seriously, and respect our privacy. She accepted everything enthusiastically, as if she were truly determined to put her life back together. I kept my end of the bargain. The next day I spoke with Greg, my boss, and explained the situation, trying to present my sister in the best possible light. She has customer service experience from the job she had at the store, I told him. And she learns fast when she focuses. Greg thought about it for a moment. An administrative support vacancy just opened up in the office. It is a simple position, but we need someone who is consistent. If she is interested, she can come in on a trial basis. I felt enormous relief. It would be perfect. Thank you. That night during dinner I told Lindsay. Really? Her eyes lit up. Do you think I can do it? Of course you can, I told her. And for the first time since she had moved in, I felt something resembling optimism. You start on Monday. We will drive together. And so our new routine began. I would wake up early, get ready, and she would get in the car with me to go to the office. We left with plenty of time so we would not get too stuck in the morning commute traffic. Some days I returned alone because her shift ended a little earlier. On those afternoons, I would arrive home and find dinner almost ready, prepared by her and Marcus. The truth is that at first, everything seemed to be working out better than I imagined. Lindsay helped around the house, and at work she seemed to be putting in real effort. On weekends she went out with friends and gave Marcus and me some space. I began to notice that a kind of friendship had formed between them. They would watch movies in the living room while I finished pending tasks in my home office. Sometimes I heard them laughing at some nonsense. It did not bother me. I trusted them both. I was even glad they got along well. About 3 months after Lindsay moved in, Greg called me into his office and my life changed direction. The company was going to open a branch in Austin, and due to my experience with several of our systems, he wanted me to coordinate the initial implementation. That meant a business trip of almost 3 weeks. I felt flattered and excited. It was a huge opportunity to show what I could do, and if everything went well, it would pave the way for a promotion. I accepted right away, even though deep down I was a bit nervous about leaving Marcus and Lindsay alone for so long. That night at dinner I gave them the news. That is awesome, Rachel, Lindsay said as she served herself more pasta. Your first major trip like this. Marcus nodded, but he looked distracted. 3 weeks is a long time. I know, I answered, reaching out to touch his hand, but it is really good for me. Lindsay smiled. Do not worry about anything here. I will take care of the house and make sure Marcus does not go hungry without you. I laughed at the joke. They were going to survive. The following 2 weeks flew by amidst preparations. I got things ready around the house, filled the freezer with food, wrote down reminders, and packed my suitcase with almost ridiculous precision. Before I knew it, I was at the airport saying goodbye to Marcus. During those 3 weeks in Austin, I worked incredibly long hours. I had to set up systems, coordinate new staff, review suppliers, and solve issues on the fly. I was exhausted, but I still tried to talk to Marcus on video calls every other day. Sometimes Lindsay appeared in the background, waving at me, blowing kisses, acting as if everything was perfect. They seemed to be getting along well. There was only something about Marcus that unsettled me a bit. Sometimes he seemed weird and distant. He said it was due to work pressure. When I finally finished and returned home, something felt off from the very first minute. Marcus welcomed me with a hug, yes, but not with the excitement I expected after 3 weeks apart. He justified it by saying he was tired from a heavy project at work, so I did not push it. Life resumed its rhythm. Lindsay and I went back to commuting together. Marcus and I slept in the same bed. The 3 of us had dinner together most nights, but there was a tension in the air that I could not quite name. Then I started noticing weird details. Lindsay changed her way of dressing around the house. Before, she wore baggy sweatpants and oversized t-shirts. Suddenly, she started wearing very short shorts and overly revealing blouses. One night, as she stretched across the table to reach the bread and her top dipped low, I decided to say something. Lindsay, could you dress a little more appropriately when we are all here? Her face changed instantly. What is that supposed to mean? I am just saying we live together, and maybe there is no need to be so exposed at a family dinner. She pushed her chair back and stood up. Sorry for offending your sensibilities, she snapped and went straight to her room. I turned to look at Marcus, expecting support, but he frowned. Do you not think you were too harsh? I stared at him, surprised. We are in October. It is not that warm to walk around like that all the time. He shrugged. She just wants to be comfortable. That moment stuck with me. The ease with which he had taken her side over something so small rubbed me the wrong way. Over the following days, I started observing them more closely. Was it my imagination? Or did Marcus look at her too much? Lindsay smiled at him more than necessary. When I stared at them, they hardly interacted, and that made me feel ridiculous for being suspicious. So I pushed those thoughts to the back of my mind and focused on work. 2 months after my return, Greg called me into his office again. As soon as I saw his face, I knew another trip was coming. The Austin branch is having some technical problems that require someone who knows everything from the inside, he explained. I know it is very soon to ask you again, but you are the right person. I was already making a mental list of things I needed to prepare. How long? At least 2 weeks, maybe more. It depends on the complexity. That night, during dinner, I broke the news to Marcus and Lindsay. I do not know if it was my imagination, but I felt they exchanged a brief glance before showing their disappointment. That is too bad, Marcus said, holding my hand. I am going to miss you. Yeah, Lindsay added, but I am sure you will solve it super fast. Their reaction sounded a bit rehearsed to me, a little too perfect. Still, I smiled and thanked them for understanding. It was my job, my career. I had to focus. The following week, I took the flight to Austin with a knot in my stomach that I could not shake off. The branch's problems turned out to be less severe than expected. I worked with my full attention, and in 10 days everything was resolved much earlier than planned. Then I had the idea to give them a surprise. I did not tell anyone I was coming back early, not Marcus, not Lindsay, not my parents. I changed my flight, took the first one available, and spent almost the entire trip imagining Marcus's face when he saw me walk in. I landed late at night, picked up my suitcase, ordered a ride through an app, and went home with that mix of exhaustion and excitement you feel when you finally return to your own space. But as soon as I opened the door, I knew something was not right. The house was half dark, and from the living room, I could see a warm flicker like candlelight. I set my suitcase down slowly and walked forward. Then I saw the dining room. The table was set for 2 with wine glasses, flowers, and lit candles. For a second, I thought maybe Marcus had found out about my return and wanted to surprise me. My heart skipped a beat. Then I heard a noise upstairs in our bedroom. I began to climb the stairs slowly, feeling the blood pounding in my ears. I wanted to convince myself that I was misunderstanding everything. Deep down, I already knew the truth. I opened the door and my world stopped. There were Marcus and Lindsay in our bed, clearly in the middle of an intimate situation. They did not even see me immediately. They were too wrapped up in the moment. When they finally turned toward the door, they froze. Rachel, Marcus managed to say, pulling the sheet up. It is not what it looks like. But it was exactly what it looked like. The romantic dinner downstairs, Lindsay's clothes, the way he defended her, the looks. Everything fell into place with brutal clarity. My body went cold and my face burned. Get out, I said quietly but so firmly that even I was surprised. Both of you grab your things and get out of my house. Lindsay, who should have kept her mouth shut, still had the nerve to talk back. I am not going anywhere. You cannot kick us out like this. Something inside me broke. I went straight to the room where she slept. I opened the closet and started pulling out clothes by the handful to throw them into the hallway. I opened drawers, emptied shelves, threw her bags, her shoes, everything I found. Just watch me, I told her without yelling, but with a firmness that made my hands shake. Lindsay came out behind me, barely wrapped in a sheet, trying to stop me, crying and complaining. I turned around and faced her. You have 1 hour to pack your things and get out. If not, I will call the police and have you removed from my property. Do not provoke me today. She must have seen something in my face because she took a step back. Marcus came out already dressed, his pants half zipped. Rachel, let us talk like adults. Like adults. I laughed and my voice sounded harsh even to me. After I just found you in my bed with my sister. He stayed quiet. Pack your things and leave before I truly lose control. Both of them must have understood I was not playing around because they started packing everything without arguing anymore. I stood in the hallway with my arms crossed, watching them hurriedly shove clothes and items into suitcases and bags. Neither dared to speak to me again. In less than an hour, they had loaded everything into Marcus's car and left. When the door closed, I collapsed onto the living room couch. The candles were still burning on the table, dripping wax onto my tablecloth. That was when I cried. I did not cry pretty. I cried as if my chest had been ripped open. An hour later, the phone started ringing. It was my mom. I did not answer. She called again and again and again, until the seventh call when I answered with a broken voice. What? Her tone was full of anger. How could you do that to your sister? I froze. What are you talking about? Your sister arrived here crying and told us everything. How could you think of kicking her out on the street while she is pregnant? The word hit me like a punch. Pregnant. My sister was pregnant, and from the way my mom said it, I knew immediately whose it was. I kicked out 2 people from my house who betrayed me in the worst possible way, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. What did you want me to do? Leave the bedroom for them. What they did was wrong, my mom said, but in that dry tone that sounded more like a formality than real indignation. But yelling is not going to change anything. You need to calm down and think with a cool head. I could not believe what I was hearing. My own mother was already setting everything up to take their side. Come over tomorrow afternoon, she continued. We have to talk about this like adults. I hung up on her without replying, turned off my phone, and went to sleep in the guest room. I could not get into my bed after what I had seen. The next morning I asked for the day off from work and went straight to a lawyer. I explained everything to her with a voice that barely seemed like mine. I told her about the infidelity in the house, the marriage under the separation of assets, and the prenuptial agreement signed before our civil wedding. The lawyer, a serious woman named Nicole, reviewed the papers calmly. This is very well put together, she said at the end. Your husband cannot claim the house or your personal accounts. The house is specially protected because you bought it before the marriage, and it is in your name. For the first time since the night before, I felt a little air in my chest. That same afternoon, with the divorce petition already prepared to start the process, I went to my parents' apartment in East Dallas. They were all waiting for me. My mom and my dad on the big couch. Marcus and Lindsay sitting across from them. Lindsay had a hand over her belly, although nothing was showing yet. From how they spoke about the pregnancy, I understood she must have only been a few weeks along. Seeing them together made my stomach turn. Without saying a word, I walked over to Marcus and placed the documents in front of him. He took them, looked at them, and as soon as he understood what they were, his face dropped. Well, my mom said, adjusting herself in her seat, at least you are already making decisions. I stared at her without saying anything. No one is saying that what happened was right, she continued. But what is done is done. Now there is a baby involved and we have to think about what comes next. Lindsay smiled slightly, as if that phrase had lifted a weight off her shoulders. But my mom had not finished. We also have to talk about where they are going to live. I glared at her. The house is legally yours, yes, my dad intervened. That is clear, but you must understand that Lindsay and Marcus need a stable place now that the baby is coming. I blinked. I thought I had heard wrong. Excuse me. What? We expect you to be generous, my mom said in all seriousness. We are not asking you to forget anything, just that you think about the child. You are the one in a better position. I looked at the 4 of them, feeling like I had entered another reality. Have you lost your minds? I finally asked. Do you really want me to hand over my house to my husband and my sister after what they did? Lindsay leaned towards me. And if not, Marcus can fight for half of everything. I let out a cold laugh. Maybe you should read this carefully before going around making threats. I pulled the copy of the prenuptial agreement from my bag and put it on the table. According to this document, the very same one you insisted I sign with him, what is mine is mine. The house remains mine. My accounts remain mine. All the color drained from Marcus's face. My parents exchanged a nervous look. Rachel, be reasonable, my dad said. Think of the family, think of the baby. Family, I repeated, feeling my blood boil. Is that what you call this? Betraying me and then wanting to take my house? Nobody answered. I am divorcing Marcus. I never want to see Lindsay again. And the money I used to send you is over. Everything is over. You have already chosen which side you are on. And it is not mine. That night I returned to my house and called a locksmith. Before midnight, all the locks had been changed. I wrote to Greg to tell him I needed a few personal days for an urgent family problem. Then I blocked my mom's, my dad's, Lindsay's, and Marcus's numbers. That did not stop them. They started calling from unknown numbers, left messages, sent emails. My mom alternated between begging me and demanding that I reconsider. My dad talked to me about family obligations. Lindsay left me guilt-tripping messages talking about the baby. I deleted everything. For 2 weeks, I barely left the house except to meet with Nicole. I was living on autopilot. The divorce began, and as expected, Marcus tried to be difficult at first. His lawyer insinuated they would fight for assets and compensation, but Nicole never got flustered. They have no grounds, she kept telling me. Soon after, they must have explained the reality to Marcus, because he agreed to go through mediation instead of taking everything to trial. The first mediation session was as uncomfortable as I imagined. Marcus arrived with Lindsay, who was already starting to show a slight curve in her belly. By then, several months had passed since I discovered them. She hung onto his arm and looked at me with a mix of triumph and defiance that gave me more sadness than anger. The mediator, a calm but firm woman, guided us through the division of assets. Just as Nicole had said, everything was respected. I kept the house, my car, and my accounts. Marcus kept his savings, which were much smaller than mine, and his car. In financial terms, it was a clean cut. Emotionally, I still felt broken. At the end of the last session, while Nicole was talking to the mediator and Marcus was reviewing some papers, Lindsay approached me. "You feel like a big winner, do you not?" she said quietly. "But look who is going home alone to an empty house. I kept Marcus and a child. Let us see who ended up losing." I looked at her slowly, and to my own surprise, I did not feel rage. I felt pity. "You kept an unfaithful man and someone who can barely support himself," I replied. "I wish you luck." Her face hardened, but I turned around before she could answer. That was the last time I spoke to her face to face. Little by little, my life found another rhythm. I took refuge in work, in code, in logic, in solving concrete problems. At the office, they were respectful. Nobody pried too much, but I did feel my coworkers' solidarity in small details. Lindsay ended up leaving the company because she could not handle the environment. Greg started assigning me interesting projects that forced me to keep my mind occupied. Several months after the divorce was finalized, I was working late at home when the doorbell rang. I peeked through the peephole and saw my mom standing outside. She looked more tired and more aged than the last time. I opened the door out of a bad idea or habit, I do not know which. She did not even wait for me to invite her in. She walked right inside. "We need to talk, Rachel. Your sister is almost due to have the baby." I crossed my arms. "That has nothing to do with me." "Of course it has to do with you. He is your nephew." She started pacing around the living room as if she still had a right to that space. "Lindsay and Marcus are very tight on money. The apartment they managed to rent is small, and in a rough area. They cannot bring a baby there." I already knew where this was going. "I have thought about it carefully," she said, sitting down on my couch without permission. "If you do not want to leave them the house, at least you could sell it and give your sister a portion of the money. It would be a way to help without getting involved in their lives." The word caught in my throat. "Help," I repeated. Was it helping what you did to me? Was taking their side helping? My mom still had the nerve to act offended. "You are being selfish. Think about the baby. Get out," I told her very quietly. "Do not be like that, Rachel. Listen to me. Get out of my house." She tried to stay and argue, but I opened the door and stood there without moving. Finally, she left, muttering things about my cruelty and my selfishness. That night I did not sleep. It was not guilt keeping me awake. Guilt no longer had anything to do with it. I did not sleep because I finally understood something I had been avoiding. As long as I kept living in the same place, my family would always find a way to reach me. The next morning I went to see Greg. "Hey," I told him from his office door. "The Austin branch. Is the option to put me in charge still available? He looked at me surprised, then interested. Yes, actually the person we had left in charge did not work out. Are you seriously interested? I nodded. I need to start over. In a few weeks, I put the house up for sale with very clear instructions for the real estate agency. No open listings, no easily traceable posts. I wanted to move everything with the utmost discretion possible. I did not say anything to anyone in my family. The house sold for more than I had paid. I packed my bags, packed up my life, moved to Austin, and did not leave a new address for anyone. In my new city, I bought a smaller but newer house in a quiet area full of young professionals. I settled in as the branch manager, and for the first time in a long time, I felt the joy of building something without anyone waiting to take advantage of me. The team respected me, the work challenged me, and that was good for me. 6 peaceful months passed. I made new friends. I joined a group that went hiking on trails and hills on weekends. I even started dating again very cautiously. One night, I checked a personal email account I almost never opened and found a message from my mom. We came looking for you so you could meet your nephew. But other people are living in your house now. How could you leave without telling us where? We have a right to know. I stared at the screen for a moment, then deleted the email without answering. They had no right to anything in my life. I had rebuilt it alone and intended to keep it that way, far from them and out of their reach. Last weekend I went out for the 3rd time with Jordan, a software engineer I met through work. He is kind, intelligent, and makes me laugh. I had not realized how much I missed laughing peacefully until it happened again. When he asked about my family, I just told him we were not close. He did not pressure me to know more, and I liked that. Right now, I am sitting on the patio of my new house, watching the sunset paint the hills in the distance gold and purple, and I feel something I had not felt in a very long time. Betrayal will always be part of my story. It will be a scar of those kinds that sometimes bother you even when it is no longer there. The phone vibrates with a message from Jordan, asking if I want to go hiking with him tomorrow. I smile and reply yes. I do not know what will happen with this new story. I do not know if it will last or if it will just be a calm and beautiful phase, but for the first time in a long time, I am open to the possibility of being happy again. And that, after all, is already a victory. Comment. This story really touched me. I hope it resonated with you as well. Standing up for your self-respect is one of the hardest yet most important things we can do. Setting firm boundaries, even with family, shows how much we value ourselves. You deserve relationships built on trust and genuine care. Giving yourself time to heal after being hurt is never selfish. Taking responsibility for your own peace is a powerful choice. Kindness toward others should never cost you your well-being. I admire anyone who has the courage to choose themselves and rebuild. I hope this inspires you to protect your peace and live the life you truly deserve. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.